So we're transitioning into a new section, and for this section, the zip file you're going to need is this healthcare fraud background zip file. So you've got the folder right here, I haven't got the folder finalized yet, but you'll be able to follow through in the videos. Each video, you can just go to the same locations for the files that I go to, and you'll be able to see. But I'd left off in my narrative about Atrium Health's crimes and Wells Fargo's crimes, and I'd left off in November of 2019. And I described all the crimes that subjected to me, and I gave you evidence for HIPAA violations and things like this. And what happens in 2020 and subsequently is there starts to be a barrage of healthcare fraud. Now go ahead and open up this folder here. And I'll open up the PDF. And when you see these files, I got a PDF and a Word doc. Just use the PDF. They're always the same, so you can use either one. I'm about to save those. But here's what I mean when I say healthcare fraud. I state that in 2020, going forward, we start to have healthcare fraud. Very serious, extreme healthcare fraud. So one is a deliberate and systematic leaving out of the incriminating details of what I say in my healthcare records. Okay, so when I talk about the illegal processing of the petition, the officer not being in the possession of it, the dates being the same, stuff like this, when I bring this up, it's nowhere to be found. Okay, a deliberate and systematic understanding of the severity of my suffering in my healthcare records. The suffering I describe to my doctors will be absent or heavily watered down. Now, why would this be? Well, because Atrium Health, and in particular, Wells Fargo, has committed crimes against me. They've given me, they've violated my civil rights in a way to expose them to a criminal or civil prosecution. And in the civil prosecution, if I sue them civilly, my pain and suffering, what will largely document that in the court is my healthcare records. So what this is my healthcare records are being prepared for the benefit of Wells Fargo. Okay, and then here we have deliberate claims that I'm suffering from symptoms of mental illness. I'll give you some examples there. And this is what happens starting in late 2020 well into 2021 up until the last appointment I have with Atrium on 2021. We have these repeated claims that are total bullshit, and I'll be able to demonstrate to you and prove to you that they're total bullshit, no problem. Once we get to that section, that this item 3 doesn't occur in the part that we're going over in this section. But they do this, and this is the purpose of this, is to cover up the crimes I've been subjected to by making them out to believe, making my belief that these crimes occurred out to be some sort of mental health problem. Now, a big part of this background is, again, I'm going to take you back into 2019 and go over my healthcare records in a little more detail. And because what happens is down the road, all of a sudden down the road, as a matter of fact, it's in October of 2020, all of a sudden Atrium Health starts to make repeated claims, like I say here, that my belief that these crimes happened is some kind of paranoid delusion, paranoia, psychosis, all this garbage. And so here we will document in this section for my appointments. This will cover the appointments here of April 25th, 2019, May 1st, 2019, 6/13, 2019, 6/24, 2019, 8/15, 2019, 11/5, 2019. It'll cover those appointments, and I'll show you the evidence that I've mentioned these crimes and civil law violations to Atrium repeatedly. Okay, and then after this section, we'll have another section that will go over February 4th to July 21st, 2020. And you will see here that I make more. I make a slew of statements in my appointments, in emails that I send them. I repeatedly mention these crimes, and the mentioning of these crimes never ever makes it to my notes. And it's only after I'm hospitalized at Novant Health on 9/29/2020 that all of a sudden Atrium Health begins to make repeated claims about these crimes. Okay, making repeated claims that my belief these crimes occurred is some sort of symptom of mania, a psychosis, paranoid delusions, all of this stuff. And so here I'll explain what's going on, and one point of this is this begs the question: if this is so, if I'm having such a profound hallucination and believing that all these crimes have occurred, why is it never mentioned in these notes and the notes for these appointments? And of course, in this section as well, you probably saw this. I go over some background information. This is relevant to the timeline because, well, for numerous reasons. That their hospital, Atrium Health, found me to be completely fine. There was nothing wrong with me, and so my belief that this privacy violation occurred, that would seem to be accurate. And this would give me also, this substantiates my claims of foul play in this involuntary hospitalization process. That's one of the main reasons that this is relevant. So I'll leave this in the timeline. And I ask you to please just watch these videos, watch them in the order that I prepare them, and send them to you, so you've got my spreadsheet or whatever else that I may have sent you that's got a list of my videos. Watch them one by one in order, and you will see that my case for what has occurred is extraordinarily strong. Okay, this is essentially an open and shut case that a competent practitioner, what I show in this next set of series, in this series, the background healthcare fraud, and the healthcare fraud section here, these, and then when I'll get these made soon. What I cover, this is definitively incriminating. If you're a competent doctor that's been practicing in psychiatric medicine, you understand psychology, all of this, the evidence is extremely, extremely powerful. I've got a lot of hard evidence, and I've got a lot of very, very, very good, very, very straightforward reasoning that doesn't require you to go out on a limb at all. When we get to this section right here, and also this section, we start to have, I have, my appointments are in virtual visits, and I have them recorded. So you'll be able to listen to me as I talk to Atrium Health and their doctors, the Atrium Health providers, as I talk to them in these appointments, and you'll be able to compare that to the notes. And I've also got, for this 9/29/20, 10/21, 10/6/21, this time period, I've got all kinds of audios of me talking about different things during this time. So, for instance, on my 8/12/2021 appointments, you will see that Atrium Health is making all kinds of claims of being paranoid, psychosis, mania, manic, all this crap. And I've got an audio that I recorded and sent to the USDOJ on that very, very same day. It's actually a series of audios, and you'll be able to listen to those audios and tell that I'm clearly not suffering from any of the above. Okay. The reason that I have so many communications between this time period, because it's on October 28th, 2020, that I send the USDOJ my complaints, and it's a few months after that, starting around January 2021, that I start to inundate the USDOJ with audio recordings about what's happened to me, and audio recordings about what I want done, what I need to be done, the evidence I have against Wells Fargo for other people, all of this. Here, actually, I'll show you some of these, and this is just a part of this. But I am obsessed with this case, and so you'll see here that I just send them audio after audio after audio after audio. And again, this is an extraordinarily small sample of the audios that I've sent. And here, let me find real quick. And I can't find all these on. I won't spare you. I'll spare you looking for all these on my computer. But here, I've got a bunch in here. I've got all this. What this is during the time that I'm making these audios, the USDOJ, they're on the scene. I've got evidence that the USDOJ, I know the USDOJ has got their eyes on the situation. And I'm in my apartment in Charlotte. I'm suffering like hell, and I need relief very, very fast. And they're not giving it to me. And I start to figure out, that they're not on my side as time goes on, or they appear to potentially not be, and they're not doing anything to help me, and I'm being subjected to crimes as they're on the scene. And so as I'm suffering, it's like I'm obsessed with my situation. I've got to do something about it, and that's why. Now the thing is these audios, they don't do a damn thing for me in getting help from the U.S. DOJ, which I've sent the U.S. DOJ as of today, as of 9/24/2022. I've sent the U.S. DOJ 805 emails. That is since 803 of those are since 10/28/2020. Of those 803 from 10/28/2020, I've received 0 replies. Okay, they never reply to me, and maybe we're getting ahead here, but what they do when I send them these audios is they go through them and look for information they can use in service of their cover-up, and that they can use in criminal abuse of me. Okay, and so I let the cat out of the bag a little bit early here, but what happens here, you've probably seen this, and this sounds strange right here, and it's going to sound a little bit more strange again. I've got evidence for this. There's no question about what I say is true, but this stay in Novant Health, this is when the U.S. DOJ sponsored cover-up begins. Okay, I sent them a 9-page complaint in March of 2020. They told me my complaint needed to be more detailed. So I desperately needed their help. If more detailed is what they want, more detailed is what they're going to get. And because I was so disabled, it took me forever. But I spent the next 7 months preparing a complaint for them that was extremely detailed. It's 126 pages. It's overly detailed looking back. And so, they had gotten a hint, when I sent in this complaint in March of 2020, which they respond. Again, the only response I ever got from them, they said, your complaint needs to be more detailed, or we can't do an investigation. This is somehow, actually, I know what's probably happened, but this is in the interim period between March of 2020 and 10/28/2020, October 28th, 2020. When I submit my complaint, the U.S. DOJ has become aware of the gravity of this situation, and they had started the cover-up before I had even submitted my complaint. Now, at the time I submitted my complaint, I did not yet realize that this right here was the beginning of the cover-up. Now, again, that sounds strange to you. I don't give a damn. If you've seen my evidence thus far, you can see that I have very good reasons for believing what I believe. In this section right here about this healthcare fraud and about this cover-up, the healthcare fraud related to the cover-up, this is probably the most powerful evidence that I have is for these crimes. Okay, that the first set of crimes I described to you with the fraudulent civil commitment process. The illegal process, the illegal processing of the petition, the mobile crisis scam. I had some really good evidence there, and then I had less evidence for the HIPAA violations. And then here, again, you will see as you watch this. I have this is I know, but the catch is though is I need somebody that's extremely competent to look at this. Because this gets very nuanced, and it heavily involves the subject matter of psychology and psychiatry, and it involves it on a high level. But I'll go ahead and close off this intro video. You've got this document, and remember that most of what occurs in this section, when I go over the 425.19 to 11.5.19, it's item number 1. Okay, item number 1. This occurs to some degree. This doesn't occur at all in the, or essentially it doesn't occur at all in the section that we're going over now. But I'll cut off this introduction part, and you can go to the first video, be the next video on your spreadsheet or on your videos list, and we'll start to go over. I'm going to go over my appointments from 2019 one by one, and I'll be narrating and explaining to you the background, the context, and everything that's going on. Okay, really quick here before I start going over my appointments, I was going to show you this folder. It's got this again. These are the same file here. You can use this fraud background guide. Then I got the appointment analysis where I've got my appointments analyzed. I'll be going over those. And then I've got this folder is currently empty. And then I've got medical records, and I don't know to what extent these medical records are going to be included in the final zip file that I send you. But these are my medical records per Atrium Health, and these are the medical records that were sent to Social Security by Atrium Health and Novant Health, and got some other docs in there. But I've got those in here for now. I'm probably they'll be included in your zip file. I'm not sure. Well, they'll almost certainly be included to some extent, and probably every last bit of this will be included in your zip file. And then what I was in that last audio, last video, what I was saying, I forgot to finish that. Is that my audios that I send to the USDOJ, when I make them audios, so I get to the point that I'm recording them in audio, every other day, every week, every day. That I send audio after audio. It does nothing to get them to help me. They're not interested in helping me at all. But it does provide some very, very good evidence for me to use to rebut these claims that I have, or how would I say, debunk these claims that I have mental illness symptoms. Because again, like this appointed 8/12/2020. I'm sorry, 8/12/2021, August 12th, 2021, when they're making all these claims. I've got audios that have me speaking for probably an hour or maybe more. From literally a few hours after that appointments took place. Okay, that these audios recorded within hours, and then I've got audios for every day of the week leading up to that, so you can get a monster-sized sample of me talking. You can see how intact my reasoning is. You can see how my speech is. All of this stuff, and so those become incredibly of value. But I'll go ahead and cut this off, and we'll get into the appointment analysis in the next video. All right, now, so we're getting into the appointment analysis. I've added this to my zip file, this Atrium outpatient spreadsheet. And this just has my visit dates from 2019 to 2021. This 10/6/2021 was my last visit, and that may be useful to you, that you can see when I've had appointments, and we're going to be going over the appointments one by one throughout this series. There'll probably be some that we skip once we get into 2021. But here we're going to start going through the 2019 appointments, and we're going to start with the 4/25 and 5/1/19 appointments, April 25th, and May 1st, 2019. Now, there are some takeaways here, and in each of these videos, I want to talk about the takeaways as to what you're supposed to leave this, the significant facts of the presentation that will become relevant as we continue. I'll give you those facts. And there's one that I want you to keep in mind. It will not make a whole lot of sense right now, and I might repeat this later, but keep this in your mind. And I've got it on this document here, this Atrium Appointments, is that in 2018, it was roughly around January of 2018 through May. I went on a process with Atrium where I had my medication adjusted because my Zyprexa or olanzapine, I take the generic olanzapine, have been causing me increasingly profound cognitive impairments. I described it as I was having dementia-type symptoms, and I went to a neurologist, and he had diagnosed me with mild cognitive impairments, and to me it felt severe, but he said mild, and he advised me that my Zyprexa was probably what was causing it. And so we go, and so the takeaway there is in 18, I had to have my medication adjusted because my olanzapine was causing me profound cognitive impairments. Okay, and what I eventually did is at first I was on 15 milligrams, that was way too much. I went to 10 milligrams, then I went to a variable dose of 5 to 10. So maybe 4 or 5 days a week I would take 5 milligrams, and a couple days a week I would take 10, and that helps with the cognitive impairment. The cognitive impairment would compound. If I take 10 milligrams several days in a row, or especially if I take 15 milligrams, there's an additive effect where the cognitive impairment gets really profound. And I was able to manage my symptoms on the 5 milligrams with an occasional 10 milligrams. But again, you can forget, for this section of the presentation, for what I'm presenting now, that has no relevance, but I want you to keep that in mind as we go along, because once we get in to the subsequent healthcare fraud that occurs in the other series, when they get the cover-up and stuff like this, this becomes a very, very relevant factor to consider when we see what takes place there. If I've got this cognitive impairments caused by Zyprexa and or olanzapine, and that this is well known by Atrium. Another thing that I want to bring up, I'm going to show you here, is again, I was hospitalized on April 21st, 2019. And you'll see here on April 16th, 2019, On April 17th, 2019, I make a bunch of phone calls to Atrium, and in these calls, I specifically reference Jenny. I tell them that Jenny is up to no good, and I want to talk to Kathy because Jenny's running a scam. And another thing is, me and Jenny, we talk about setting up an appointments where me and Jenny can go with my doctor and talk to. I want to set up an appointment where I go by myself to explain it to Kathy. Then Jenny goes to explain her side to Kathy. Then we talk together. And on all these calls, they discount my concerns and say that they're not allowed to hand out your healthcare information and stuff like this. But I did give these people a heads up, and I specifically mentioned Jenny's name. They failed to record Jenny's name here. When I tell them, I told them that Jenny was up to no good. She's running scams. I think they might be trying to get my healthcare records. All of this stuff it doesn't get recorded. And of course, here's my first claim that I make to Atrium about Wells Fargo trying to get my information. Which at this point, I primarily suspected Jenny. I didn't realize to what extent Wells Fargo was behind it until then. But I wanted to make that as just a point. Okay. But of course, another point that's very relevant is that when I was hospitalized, I was brought to the hospital on April 21st of 2019. I was admitted April 22nd. Atrium themselves determines that there's nothing wrong with me. Okay, and that is important for subsequent periods. Now, when the reason I group these appointments together is my memory is fuzzy on some of these details if it occurred on the 5-1 or the 425. Okay, so I would have told Kathy for sure on one of those appointments, actually the 425 appointment, actually probably both of those. I would say both of those. I told Kathy how there was no legitimate reason for Jenny to file this petition. I tell her how we've been arguing. I give her the backstory. And I tell her about how that I'd made a heated statement about this, don't leave me a vegetable. Okay, and it was on one of these appointments, that I told Kathy about the officer not having the petition in his possession when he came to my apartment and took me into custody. Now, on one of these appointments, I deauthorized Jenny's number and my mother's number. I already told the girl, the social worker, to delete the numbers. She refuses to delete them or deauthorize them. She tells me I'm not going to be there. There's no point. And then she squints and laughs at me the second time that I ask her. And so I go with the nurse, and what happens is the nurse reads off, and she reads off her list of questions, and she says, "So I have us authorized to talk about your health care, your mother and Jennifer Cox." Okay, so on this, Atrium has it that I deauthorized on 5/1/19. I'm not sure if something funny's going on there or not, because on my healthcare notes for 4/25/19, they have that they gave me the rundown, that the nurse gave me a rundown. And I can tell you that for 100% sure, the very first time the nurse told me this, I put it into it immediately. So if they did truly give me a rundown and explain these contacts, I for sure had these numbers deauthorized on 4/25/19, and for some reason it's not recorded as deauthorized until 5/1/19. And it may be that the nurse, for some reason, entered that she gave the questionnaire, but she didn't. But this was a big, high emotion point for me. This is a big. This is kind of pushing my buttons here. I want to hear this because my last nightmare on earth is for my mother to get in touch with Jenny and get in touch with my hospital. That's why I had these numbers deauthorized. That's why I want them deleted. And so for sure on the same exact appointment, whatever it was, if it was the 4/25/19 or if it was the 5/1/19, as soon as that same appointment where I deauthorized the numbers to the nurse, I have told Kathy about the social worker refusing to delete the numbers. For sure, I remember saying that. I can't remember what appointment it was on. Truthfully, I remembered it as the 4/25/19 appointments. But this 5/1/19, when they put that in there, that they deauthorized on 5/1/19 instead of 4/25, that has me doubting just a little bit. It might have been the same. It might have been, maybe it was the 5/1. But then I tell her about how I ask her if it has the date and time for when the petition was signed, or just when it was signed to the magistrates. And Kathy tells me that just has the dates, and I referred to it as the petition, and so that is correct if it's the petition. But what I was getting at, I told her about the officer not having the petition in his possession when he came to get me, and so that was the context. And so I would expect her to understand in context what I'm talking about. But for whatever reason, she says no. That this has the date. And on this 5/1/19 appointment, I bring Kathy. I bring her a data disk where I have the calls with Jenny, the same calls that are in my privacy violation folder, and I have this text message. And I explained to her how Jenny says that this text message is the entirety of her communications with Toonie, and Kathy agrees with me that it is odd, but she overall thinks that I'm making too big a deal out of this. She says that I'm ruminating, and doesn't doesn't say much else about it. But she did say so. So here I've given her evidence. I've given her some evidence. I've told her about the foul play with the officers, and I'll show her this odd thing that's happening with Jenny and Toonie. And Kathy tells me at the end of the appointments that Jenny's never going to tell me what I want to hear, if she did it or not, and I need to make a decision whether I want to be Jenny's friend or not, if it's worth it to me to be Jenny's friend. Okay, and so none of this, the details about the officer not having the petition in his possession is gone. The girl, the social worker refusing to delete these numbers, that's not anywhere. There's no mention of the text message between Toonie and Jenny. I already explained to you about how these numbers, about how I'm not sure what day I deauthorized them, that I thought it was 4/25/19. Okay, so here are the key takeaways. That I deauthorized both Jenny's number and my number. Both Jenny's number and my mother's number in these appointments. So nobody should be contacting Jenny. Nobody should be contacting my mother. And of course, I've already deauthorized them both at the inpatient unit, and they refused to cooperate. The social worker wouldn't deauthorize them. I told Kathy, okay, so here's again, I've told her about foul play with their hospital, where the social worker is refusing to delete the numbers. Okay, I told the same thing to the nurse. I can tell you 99% certain that when this nurse tells me this, I explain the same thing to her. Because again, this thing about these numbers not being there, this is a big, I have huge emotions tied to this. I mean, this gets me all wound up, I guarantee you. And of course, I tell Kathy about the officer. So here again, I'm giving her already, as of April 25th and May 1st, 2019, I'm already giving her suspect details about what has occurred. So I'll make later claims about these crimes. They can't pretend like this is the first time I've ever brought them up. And again, this is nowhere to be found on my records. Then I show Kathy this suspect text. And again, that is evidence for what I claim with Jenny. So that's the key takeaways. And then I've got the cumulative takeaways. Okay, and again, this one right here. Just hold on to this. It'll be a whole lot later. It's almost towards the end when this becomes significant. This fact becomes significant. But I got this calling of impairment. And so here, Atrium, that I've already told them on 4/16 and 4/17 that Jenny's up to no good, that Wells Fargo is up to no good. So at that point, I've made those claims. Okay, and of course they do record that I think Wells Fargo is going to get my medical records, which in both of those calls I specifically referenced Jenny. Okay. So here, after I've referenced Jenny on these calls on 4/21/19, I've got this petition that has me being delivered to examination units and taken into custody at the exact same time. This is suspect. It's got all these suspect claims, and Morsi doesn't bat an eye. She examines me on 4/22/2019, and I told Kathy about the petition being suspect. So the takeaways about this is that at some point during this time, between these two appointments, it seems quite likely that Kathy would have known about these dates on the petition being different, or being the same. I'm sorry, being this is suspect when they put the time taken into custody and the time delivered to the unit as the same. This is suspect. Okay, so here we continue. So on 4/23/2019, A team of professionals at Atrium, including Kathy, come to the conclusion that there's absolutely nothing wrong with me. I'm scheduled to be discharged on 4/24/2019. When I leave, they tell me it's good because it's a good thing you've been here because you've been examined and we found nothing. Okay, so that's important, is that their hospital has called bullshit on this civil commitment petition with all of these claims that were made on it. They find nothing's wrong with me. This is they characterize this as a he said, she said thing. So here again, I've told Kathy suspect details. She has a reason to believe that this process was suspect because of what I've told her, and because her own hospital has validated this as suspect. Okay, and then here I've already told you this. Refused to be deleted, these numbers. Okay, and here we go over this again. I told her about the suspect nature. I give her one piece of evidence. I give her the text. Okay, and so here I'm going to go to my medical records next here, and we'll see how this is not recorded in my records. We'll see how these details, what I described to you for these appointments, we'll see how they show up on my appointments, on my records. So here's my 4/25/19 appointments. I've got this redacted. Okay. And you can read these. I don't want to read these verbatim. But she goes over what I told her about, the thing in the mountains where I was stigmatized and stuff like this. And so we've already went over that a million times. But you will see here, I can go petition. I can do Control F this petition. There's no mention of the petition in possession. Control this possession. There's no mention of the petition not being in the possession of the officer. There's no mention of the girl not deleting my the numbers, and so this is already, again, we're already showing a pattern where Atrium Health's mistakes in their suspect and criminal behavior doesn't make it to the notes. Another thing I want to focus on is this mental status and examination, and I want to go here specifically to thought content and perceptions, and we're going to notice how this changes as these appointments progress. Thought content: no violent, no suicidal, no homicidal. If a patient has fixed beliefs, cannot confirm or refute validity. Perceptions: no abnormalities. Okay, now we were doing these appointments together with 525 and 420. I'm sorry, 51. Okay, this is the wrong one. 51 and 425. We were doing these together, and we'll see here if there are any details about the petition in here. And we see there's no mention of any of this. Okay, there's no mention of the incriminating details that I told you, the suspect behavior. It doesn't make it to my records. And here we go, our mental status examination. Okay, we have no abnormalities. And then we have the same thing for thought content. So we'll monitor how that changes as time progresses. Okay, and so you've got this appointment document here, and we'll keep adding to these takeaways as we go along. And again, as I go over these appointments, once we've got all these appointments put together for 2019, then we put together in the next section for the healthcare fraud section. This is the background for the healthcare fraud section. The next one, when we put together the details for these appointments in 2020, that will firmly lay the groundwork. Everything is going to make sense to you, and you'll be able to see how suspect, how dishonest, and how blatantly criminal Atrium's behavior has been. Without this component right here, it wouldn't make as much sense to you. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this video off, and in the next video, we'll go over the June 13th appointment. So now we're going to look at the June 13th and the June 24th 19 appointments. But first, I just remembered there was another detail that I forgot to add. Just occurred to me. that on these 425 and 5119, I told her about Kathy about how Jenny had lied to me and told me that the magistrate's office was across the street from the inpatient unit. That was on April 23rd. I was in the hospital. I called Jenny. It's either the 23rd or the 24th, but I called Jenny from the hospital. And Jenny told me that the magistrate's office was across the street from the inpatient units. And what's going on there is her police officer friend, police officer that came and got me, I was told her about how I'm asking him questions about the petition. He's making it clear that he doesn't have it. And they're trying to fudge the details and kind of cover up the fact that he didn't have the petition in his possession somehow. With that, that's her motive for lying. The magistrate's office is not across the street from the inpatient units, not even close. And so I tell Kathy this, and Kathy obviously knows that this is false. And so this is another suspect, a detail that would have Kathy's antenna raised and have her kind of looking into this petition and what had happened. And of course, if she looks into it, she's going to find out that the details are very suspect. And of course, if Morsi was part of the scam, then you should probably talk to Morsi about it. And so again, it's very, very likely that as of May of 19, Kathy's already figured out that there's been some really, really fishy, suspect stuff happening with this inpatient stay. So at the very least, she's noticed how these dates are not right. Another detail, and I'm not going to type this in here, but I told Kathy about how the officer that came and got me, for the commitment, and when he came to my apartment, didn't have the petition. I told him about how he is Jenny's personal friend. I'm not going to write that here on this. I'm sick of editing this documents. But on the 6/24, June 24th appointment PDF, I've got that detail listed on my takeaways. And so now we'll progress and we'll go to the June 13th appointment. And the first thing I'll show you on the June 13th appointment is in the interim period between the 5/1/19 and the June 13/19 appointments, I had started to have extraordinarily profound traumatic stress symptoms, and I wasn't able to work at all, and I was just absolutely destroyed. And I'd taken extra Adderall to try to help me to be able to work, and I discovered that taking 60 milligrams of Adderall instead of 40 milligrams helped me be able to work, and there was a couple of days I was able to get a little bit of work done, and I felt much better on 60. And so I called the nurse about this. I was wanting Kathy to up my Adderall, and Kathy told her to tell me that if I was feeling, because I told her I feel like I couldn't go on, and the only thing that helps me is Adderall. And she told her to tell me if I feel like I can't go on, to go to the emergency department. Okay. In this emergency department, it's a nightmare. What's going to happen? I'm going to go there and sit for hours to be seen by a doctor who's going to tell me nothing. Okay, and this is a part of what happens here is, Kathy's figuring out that I'm a liability for her hospital, I think. And she's starting to have, I got the sense that she has kind of a negative attitude towards me, or kind of almost a hostile attitude towards me, where I'm calling and reporting her this horrible suffering that I'm under. Instead of caring about my horrible suffering, she kind of cops an attitude and tells me to go to the ED, which is not going to help me with nothing. Okay, I'm cold-blooded, and you'll see in my healthcare notes there's some subtle inferences to be made from my healthcare notes, or some subtle signs that she's starting to kind of have a again, I don't want to say a hostile attitude, but she's conscious of the fact that I'm a liability for her hospital. Is what it amounts to, and she's got I guess it's an antagonistic or something like that attitude that she thinks I'm causing trouble. But this is worth noting here that I was dealing with emotional trauma, and I told them how I couldn't work. And then here we have on this about how I'm traumatized and emotionally paralyzed. Okay, he says he's sitting here watching my life be destroyed. Okay, then here she's said again to call the ED. Okay, and they don't have it notated how she's on the 7th when I called that she told me to go to the ED, which is remotely possible that she didn't, but I'm almost 100% sure that she did. But that's part of the context of what's happened. Is Kathy it appears that she's getting a more and more clear picture that I'm a liability for her hospital. Okay, here let's go to this appointment, and these documents are brief. I'll go ahead and use the Word document. I think the PDF's the same. I'm doing the 613 and the 624 together, because some of this I'm not 100% sure what day it said. It was on one or the other. But I've got note here. I showed you how I called about my emotional trauma, being unable to work. Okay, and on the 613-19 appointment, I go and I play the recording to Kathy, and I explained to her how Shirley's calling and asking me for my social security number, and this is very, very suspect. I told her that about her. She said she left a voicemail on Jenny's work number, which I don't even know. And Kathy cuts me off. She doesn't want to listen to the phone call, listen to the rest of it. She says that she thinks that Shirley is just doing her job. Now, that occurred on the 613-19 appointment, 100% for sure. That occurred on the 613-19 appointment. Now, this next set of details. Actually, let me skip down. I'm going to skip this paragraph because I would have told her about this on the 613 appointments. I would tell her how I sit there and just melt. That's when I describe it. That I'm in this horrific emotional pain. I describe the horrible emotional trauma. I tell her how 60 milligrams of Adderall helps me, and that during May, there had been just a few days. So I tell her that in the month of May, there were a few days when I could get work done if I took an extra Adderall. I likely brought it up again about how the social worker at the inpatient unit refused to deauthorize or delete Jenny's number. And I told her about how I'm going to file a lawsuit with Wells Fargo over their privacy violation. That's what I wanted to do, and in response to that, Kathy thought I was being silly. She thinks I should just let this whole thing go and stop focusing on it. But these details, I can't remember if I told her on the 613 or the 624. Equally probable on both, I would say. But I tell Kathy about this mobile crisis counselor being Jenny's personal friend. Okay, then in the interim time between May 1st, 19 and June 13, when I'm talking to her, Jenny's let the cat out of the bag and kind of unintentionally let on to me that this crisis counselor is Jenny's personal friend. I tell her about the crisis counselor repeatedly asking me, do you have a mental illness? Do you have a mental illness? What we need to know is, do you have a mental illness? I tell her about that I looked it up, and the Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer has committed a crime with what he did with not having this petition in his possession, and that the punishment for what he has done is 3 years in prison. I believe at that time I'd looked it up, and I found that he was guilty of something called a felonious restraint, which had a penalty of 3 years. It might have been some other crime. I can't remember. I didn't reference the specific crime to her. I just told her that I looked it up and it was a crime for him to do this. And I remember telling him that he was looking at 3 years in prison. And again, these details may have occurred on the 624 appointments. Now, we'll go ahead and we'll go to the 624 appointments. This. And this one is very brief. And the main feature of this is how I tell Kathy near the end of the appointment. Well, actually, so first off, I'll tell you that I tell Kathy that I don't read like I used to, but I think I can concentrate well. What's happened there is I had a compulsion to be at my computer that took over in the middle of June. I was middle late June. I started to have this compulsion to be busy, and I would be at my computer for 18 or 20 hours at a time, plastered in my computer, and I mistook the fact that I worked on my computer so much for me being able to concentrate, but I believe my concentration was actually very impaired because I couldn't read hardly at all, and I would during that time. It's like I get up, and my normal routine is when I get up, I go to eat breakfast, and then I read for 30 minutes. What I would do is I would go and I would eat breakfast, and I would get home and I would try to read, and it would take me about 30 seconds, 60 seconds, maybe at the most up to 5 minutes before this compulsion to be busy took over, and I would be stuck at my computer. But this is the appointment where I bring up again the suspect behavior of the finance department. I tell Kathy about how Shirley claims that I entered Jenny's work number on my intake paperwork, is how that Shirley got my number, and claims to have gotten my number. But I tell her that I don't recall doing any intake paperwork when I was in the inpatient units, and I tell her that I don't recall seeing an alternate contact number. And Atrium systems, meaning the systems that Kathy and the nurses use. Now, in response to this, Kathy, it's like all of a sudden, she becomes energized. Something about these facts that I've told her have really got her attention, her antenna up, and all of a sudden, again, she's kind of like energized, and she starts to go and type on her computer really fast, and get into the system, go to my alternate contact number, and look at it, and then right after that, as I'm leaving the appointment, she's got this incredibly disturbed look on her face, and she reaches out to shake my hand, but it's like she's giving me the dead fish, like she's halfway extending her hand to me to shake it and looking at me, and again, her demeanor, the way, the look on her face is like something is really, really bothering her very, very, very badly. She's extremely disturbed, and I could also sense that this disturbed, this whatever was disturbing her had to do with me. Now, it was probably, and at the time I thought that it was probably because I told her near the end of the appointment, after she looked at, it was right around the same time, I think it was right after she had looked up this, looked at the alternate contacts, I had told her, I said, we've had a HIPAA violation here, referring to the fact that I'd had this number deauthorized, that I had Jenny deauthorized multiple times, and here Shirley's calling her again on a number that I don't know. I said, I think we've had a HIPAA violation here. We've probably had a HIPAA violation here. And at the time, I thought that that's what it was, that Kathy had realized that Shirley committed a HIPAA violation, and this was why she had this, whatever it was bothering her so extremely badly, that the feeling was directed at me, was over that. And at this time, I had no intention whatsoever of getting Atrium in trouble over this HIPAA violation with Shirley at the finance department. What I wanted them to do was to help me catch Wells Fargo and to set up a sting. I told her about setting up a sting on the 6/13 appointment. That's what I wanted her to do, and she just dismissed me. But I still at this point, I didn't realize to the extent that Atrium was involved in all that occurred. I had a good opinion of Atrium at this point. I really thought well of my hospital, and I was only concerned about Wells Fargo and getting them in trouble. Now, we will find out, as I've already explained to you. I've already explained to you in the HIPAA violations video, and I'll go over it again in this video, that I put the pieces together as of 8/15/2019 on my next appointment. I put the pieces together as to what has occurred by that time. But let's go to my healthcare notes, and we'll first go to the June 13 notes. And she documents here because, again, it's June 13. She thinks I'm overanalyzing the situation. She doesn't. So she doesn't think there's been a legitimate crime. But you can see here, she notates. She notates that I refused to give her my social security number, and I suspected there were nefarious reasons for her asking for this information. Patient eventually calms down and is willing to consider the unlucky role. And I'm not sure to what extent I said this, or she just had this impression that I might have went along with her a little bit, or said I'll think about it, or something like this. But she does have reported being emotionally distraught and increased dose of acetyl. Okay, so here this patient presents, I'm angry. So yes, this was the date, I remember now, and that's why I put that on the 613 notes. It was the same day that I was irritable and angry and agitated. It was this is the same day that I told her about all the stuff that I'd said. That might have occurred on 624, so for sure, that occurred on 613. I remember now because it was the same day that I told her this stuff. She goes on to narrate some of the same stuff that I've told her before about the mountains being stigmatized. Here, she says, at one point he talks about it disrupting his ability to work, but then later on downplays other symptoms, stating good sleep and appetite as well as energy and concentration. And so here, this has the appearance of me. She's kind of minimizing. She's kind of minimizing what I'm telling her, because I'm telling her, about how I melt, and how I lash out at my manager. I'm pretty sure I told her about that, and then I was just that I get hit with a shell shock and this trauma and all of this. That this is that she's kind of got a dismissive attitude towards me here, and she's not appropriately documenting how severe my symptoms are relative to what I've told her. Okay, he reports that he is not paranoid and knows this is true. She says she has no first-hand knowledge of the situation, unable to verify. She says patient has fixed belief in the surrounding situation, and now we have a new descriptor. Here she starts to add this. It does not appear he has specific evidence, but interprets conversations and situations to confirm his suspicion. Okay, so this is a little bit suspect here because I've given her some specific evidence about a lot of this. Okay, the facts that I've given thus far, we'll go over that in the takeaways when I get to the takeaway section, but I've got a lot to be suspect about, to be suspicious about. And then here we're going to go back and review my mental examination notes. Okay, and she has the same thing. Thought contents is the same. Perceptions, no abnormalities. Now we'll go to my 624, 19 notes. Wrong one. Okay, and here, this is very, very briefly referenced. This is a very brief HPI she gives me here, history, present, illness. She does say that I was feeling overwhelmed and emotionally devastated. Again, she's not adequately documenting my suffering, but she doesn't say any more details about this thing with Shirley, where I tell her about there not being an alternate contact. Patient is much improved. This is most likely this is pretty accurate, I would say, because again I was traumatized like hell for May, being traumatized like hell and unable. It's like I melt down and I get the shell shock and I can't work, and that continues on into June, and then sometime in June I start to have this compulsion to be busy, and I'm at my computer all the time. And also my symptoms would fluctuate. I would have a period of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks where I'm really, really bad off, and then I'd have another period. I'd have a period of being better. So that's most likely accurate, or mostly accurate. I'd say that's, give a pass on that. Okay, and so here she references the Social Security number. But she doesn't reference the new details that I've given her. She doesn't tell her that I talked about not seeing a contact number. We've had a HIPAA violation. None of this stuff. Let's get down to my thought content here. Okay, so my thought contents: no violent thoughts, no suicidal thoughts, no homicide. Same exact thing. Perceptions, no abnormalities. So that's interesting that I talk about her hospital committing these crimes again in 624, and she doesn't, at this point, she's not claiming this is a delusion, a hallucination, a paranoia, and anything at all. My perceptions are fine. Okay, now let's go to our takeaways. Okay, we saw some understatement of my suffering, and again that on 624 this is probably accurate. It may not be. I cannot remember this last comment that she made about me being much improved. That might not have been much of an exaggeration at all, or an exaggeration at all. See, Kathy seems to be understating of the severity of my suffering. She's not reporting all the details that I give her, and talking about how I can only work. Again, I told her I can only work 2 days out of May, and she has this kind of a bad attitude towards me, that I can sense that she's kind of callous about my suffering and kind of disrespectful. And she told me, tell them that if he feels like he can't go on, tell him not to go to the ED. Okay. We have, again, in our previous evidence for the HIPAA violations, as of 5/31, we have evidence already that my hospital is involved in crime. Okay, now before that, am most likely I'm a liability for the hospital. I'm a liability for the hospital, and Kathy is likely became aware of this by the first week of May, I would say. And so we have Kathy has a motive for doing what she's doing. So we can't tell for 100% sure the extent to which she's understating my suffering. It's not extremely blatant in these notes the way she understates my suffering. Maybe this is a mistake, but what she is doing is she's very, very, very seriously underreporting and not accurately reporting all of these suspect details of what's happened, including about this lady calling Jenny, because she says here that she talks about Jenny's number being deauthorized, and saying that Jenny was called on her number that was deauthorized again, that Jenny was called again after her number was deauthorized. She doesn't give the detail that I tell her that it was Jenny's work number that I don't even know. Okay, it's not the number I deauthorized, it's the number that I don't even know, that she claims that I entered in on my inpatient paperwork, or my intake paperwork, and I don't recall doing any intake paperwork except the time when I first came to the hospital. Okay, so she doesn't say anything about the police officer being Jenny's neighbor and friend. She doesn't say anything about the crisis counselors being Jenny's friend. And this behavior with the crisis counselors is extremely suspect. I think anybody that practices in the mental health field knows that there's no point to go to somebody's house and sit down with them and say, "Do you have a mental illness? Do you have a mental illness? What we need to know is, do you have you over and over and over again. This is weird, strange, suspect behavior on top of a bunch of other suspect behavior that we have, including this bullshit involuntary hospitalization petition and commitment process that her hospital, her own hospital, as part of a process that she was a part of, determines was bullshit. Okay, that is suspect. Okay, so that is, again, I told you in the beginning, the intro to this section, that's the main element we have in this background section, is that the suspect details of what occurred do not make it to my notes. Okay, and then finally, with this bizarre reaction that she has, where she's very, 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 very disturbed. She gives the strong appearance, and it's pretty, it's essentially, it's obvious. I know at the end of this appointment, or actually, after I figure out what's happened, it becomes clear that Kathy's reaction, the strange reaction she has, is because she has figured out that the finance department is up to no good. Okay, and here I've got my cumulative takeaways now, and I've grayed out the old ones. You can read those, but I'm going to keep a chart of these. Okay. And here we have kind of a rehash of the same thing. But I've given her all these suspect details. Okay, when she says I don't have specific evidence, I would like to know how she doesn't think that I have specific evidence that it would appear to me that a whole lot of suspect stuff has gone on here. But I'm more and more looking like a liability to Kathy and Atrium Health as of this point, and again in these cumulative takeaways that we're only into June of 19, and I've got numerous repeated references to the officers' crimes, the officer was involved in, to Mobile Crisis, their behavior being suspect and likely criminal. Okay, that they're a part of a deliberate scam. That these people are Jenny's friends and neighbors. The police officer, the crisis counselor, the petition not being in the officer's possession. All of this, I've described every bit of this numerous times. And there's no claim that I'm paranoid. There's no claim that I'm delusional. There's no claim that I have an active psychosis, okay? And you'll see this goes on as we go on through these appointments. We have a repeat of the same thing where I bring this up over and over and over again, and they don't make any claims whatsoever. Again, the stuff doesn't even make it to my records at all. And then all of a sudden, starting in October of 2020, they start to document these same things that I've been telling them the whole time, that I'm paranoid, delusional, manic, active psychosis. Okay, all of this bullshit, and it strongly begs the question as to why are they doing this all of a sudden then, what's going on here? This doesn't add up. Okay. But I will cut off this. This will be the conclusion of this video. I don't have much else to say, I don't think. And now in the next ones, I will get in to the August 15th and November 5th, 2019 appointments. And I'll explain how things change around November and December of 2019. That the nature of my relationship with Atrium and their relationship to me, it changes quite dramatically. So here are our final two appointments for 2019. We got the August 15th, 2019 appointment and the November 5th, 2019 appointment. I'll go over the August 15th appointment in this video. In the next video, I'll go over the November 5th appointment, which will have another cumulative list of takeaways. And then following that, we'll have a video that'll explain some things and kind of serve as a transition into the next section where we get to the much more blatant healthcare fraud that occurs in 2020. One correction I do have to make is in my Atrium Fraud Background Guide. It is actually here. It's January of 2021 is when my hospital starts to make the fraudulent claims about my illness, about my belief that these crimes occurred being a symptom of mental illness. This right here, as I'll explain when I get to that section, this is what sets them up to do that, to make those claims, that they've got an outside party making these claims. They can then refer back to them. The problem with Atrium, that they had to bring in Novant Health, is because I've already accused Atrium of wrongdoing. And so Atrium records on their own are going to look suspect. So they bring in a third party to make a bunch of fraudulent. And again, when we get these, you'll see this is blatant, this is bullshit. I can prove it very easily. But they get an outside party to make these fraudulent claims. And what happens, and we're getting ahead here, but it's any time that I mention these crimes. So in this 10/21/2020 appointment, then I have another appointment in November of 2020. I don't make any reference to Wells Fargo's crimes, to Atrium's Health crimes, and none of that. And so they don't document anything. They'll put in there, I think they put that I was recently hospitalized for paranoia in Novant Health, but they don't otherwise say anything. But then in January, I get mad at them and I make a reference to these crimes, and they start putting in there about how I'm paranoid and stuff. Then I have appointments subsequent to January where I don't mention these crimes, and they don't make these claims. So the pattern is every time I mention these crimes, they've got to say that I've got a paranoid delusion or I'm manic and psychotic and whatever their other bullshit that they want to say. But that is a correction, and I'll correct this document. So by the time you've got this document, it'll be corrected. But I had to make that correction because it was in my other video. But to go back, and we'll go through these quickly, or try to at least. So here's what happens in my August 15th, 19 appointment. Is, again, I'm worried about Jenny. I'm seeing my clinical visit notes that somehow Jenny has penetrated my hospital. She's compromised my information, I know, because she's got stuff on her mind that I confided in Kathy. And I know how this happens. I don't want to explain the whole thing. I want to explain it partially before. But I know for a fact that Jenny's got my health information. I called corporate privacy on August 6th, and they found no improper access. And so I'm not sure what's happened. And so the first thing I want to do on this August 15th, 19 appointment, as soon as I walk through the door, I'm very anxious to see the notes from my last visit from 6/24/19. Kathy, I asked her to pull up the notes. I'm very, very kind of, I'm anxious and kind of chomping at the bit to see these notes. Kathy has no reaction to this whatsoever. This is not surprising to her. I've never had this behavior before. She doesn't ask me, why do you want to see the notes? Okay, she just pulls them up and lets me look at them. And then I sit down, and it's again, this is, it doesn't register at all, register as unusual at all with her that I do this. And then we have a brief appointment where I'm talking kind of fast, and I go over everything that's happened and probably make a few comments about my symptoms and stuff like this. And as I'm talking kind of fast, again, this is this brief appointment with me talking fast, I'm kind of casually mentioning everything. It's like I'm using the same rhythm, the same tone of my voice, the same cadence of my speech. That I was going on and mentioning one thing after the other. And I mentioned these illegal attempts to get my healthcare records from the finance department. Okay, now, first off, Kathy knows when I said this, I'm not talking so fast that I fly over her, okay, that she doesn't understand what I'm saying. She looked me right in the eyes when I said this, but she had no reaction. Okay, and by the way, when I look at these 6/24/19 notes, there's no remote mention of anything that I thought that Jenny had saw from looking at my notes. Kathy didn't record this on my notes. And that had me comforted for a minute. But then again, as this appointment goes on, and I mentioned this healthcare fraud coming out of the finance department about their illegal attempts to get my healthcare records. And when I mentioned this, Kathy has no reaction whatsoever. Okay, she has a calm and unaffected demeanor. And this is in contrast. The first time I mentioned this, she was on 6/13/19. She was frustrated with me. Okay, she thought I was being silly and focusing too intensely on this matter, and needed to drop it. I'm overthinking it. Again, it frustrated her. She cut me off. Didn't want to listen to the rest of the phone call that I had recorded. Then on 6/24/19, as I bring up the rest of these suspect details, all of a sudden, she's really energized, and she's like really going kind of real fast, going to her computer and typing the buttons and going to the screen to get the alternate contacts to look at that. She's got kind of again. She's energized. It's like something's up. She looks. She sees nothing as we're walking out the door. She's extraordinarily disturbed. Okay, and, that's the contrast. Whereas on 8:15, it's nothing. She doesn't react with shock, surprise, confusion, frustration, and what that is an indicator of is that she has accepted this reality. Okay, the notion that the finance department is trying to illegally get my healthcare records is not controversial to her at all. She knows that's what's happened. Okay, and most people don't seem to be able to read into people's behavior like I do. But that's what's going on there. I don't know how to make an analogy for this. I would say, I don't know who you are listening to this, but say you're a man. And I say, sir, you're a man. Or say you're a woman. I say, ma'am, you're a woman. Okay, when I say that, it elicits no response from you. You don't react with shock, surprise, confusion. You have a calm and unaffected demeanor because that's a reality that's uncontroversial to you and that you've accepted. Now, I could say other things to you that would get you all flustered and you're mad, frustrated, confused, all of this other stuff. And that's what you read into her behavior. And she knows what has happened. And my comfort about this evaporates. Again, I was temporarily comforted when I see that there's nothing mentioning this. What I told Kathy that I was worried Janie saw, nothing on my notes whatsoever about it. This was comforting at first. But then, as I walk out of the disappointments, it hits me what has occurred. Okay, here's the pattern of events. Kathy gets extraordinarily disturbed when she sees this evidence, when I tell her this evidence of the Atrium Health being involved in misconduct with her finance departments. She's got this extraordinarily disturbed, like something about something is really, really, really bothering her. Okay, I'm talking to Jenny following this appointment. One of the next times I'm talking to Jenny, we start talking about some stuff, and all of a sudden, Jenny's got stuff on her mind that I've confided in my doctor. Okay, details about my life that I've confided, things I've shared with my doctor, and and no one else. And Jenny's having a plagiarized private thought. This is how poor little Jenny works. She talks about stuff with other people and claims that it's her own intuition or whatever. And so I'm thinking Jenny's got a hold of my info. I think she's got a printout of my notes. I go to Kathy's. I look at my notes. She hasn't got off my notes because there's nothing about what I told Kathy on my notes. And then I go to this appointment. I walk in. I immediately want to see the notes. I'm very, very anxious. Kathy doesn't respond with any kind of shock, surprise, confusion. She doesn't want to know why I want to look at the notes. Okay? Now why does she is not surprised I want to look at my notes? Because she's been talking to Jenny illegally, and Jenny's told her about how I told Jenny it was suspect that I talk about stuff with my doctor, and then Jenny knows it. Okay, Kathy is the third participant in this conversation that me and Jenny are having about Jenny knowing stuff that I magically thinking stuff that I talked about with my doctor. That's what she's not surprised. And I'm on the same appointment on August 15th. It becomes clear to me that Kathy is in agreement with me. She understands that the finance department is involved in illegal conduct. Okay, that they've broken the law. And so you put together what's happened here. Is Kathy, she's got that disturbed look on her face on 6/24/19. When I leave, she's hopping on the phone. She's getting on Facebook to do something to contact Jenny. She's got to get control of the situation. I'm going to get her hospital in trouble, and whatever Wells Fargo wants, she'll just give it to him. And that's what she's done. And in the process of talking to Jenny and telling her, hey, I'm on your side, and if she talks to Wells Fargo, I'm on their side. We got to get this under control. They realize that she's an ally, that she's not opposing them. They go ahead and tell her everything that's happened, and that's how she figures out that for sure this lady at the finance department is involved in crime. Now, following this, I'm extraordinarily undistressed. My PTSD, my symptoms, I have a dramatic upswing, and this upswing lasts for a long time. and it's like I'm destroyed and screaming and crying. And when I talk to Jenny on the phone, or I text Jenny, I'm telling her about how distraught that I am. I'm very, very, very scared of my hospital at this point, because I am a prisoner at will of my hospital, and they are committing crimes against me. Now, in these months, in July, August, my PTSD is going through the roof. But I'm scared to tell too much about it to my hospital, because they could use the distress that I'm under as an excuse to have me forcibly hospitalized, and have me, and basically force me to put on their records to state that my belief about what happened was some kind of mental health or something like this, that I've got people that are committing felonies against me, that are facing prison time as a result of their conduct towards me, who simultaneously have the ability to imprison me at will. And no magistrate, no judge, no anyone will ever listen to the words of a mentally ill person over a bunch of healthcare people, PhD psychologists, psychiatrists, nurse practitioners, all these medical professionals. The judge is going to listen to them, and it's like I'm a prisoner at will on an indefinite basis. Now, the main thing that I wouldn't tell them, that I was scared about telling them on this next appointment on 11:05, is I had this symptom where I would wake up, or I'd be in bed. The first thing that I wake up, or when I'm trying to go to sleep at night, and I would have this thing where I would crave my last breath, as an addict craves a drug. That's how I put it. But I would be having this profound, unbelievable pain. It was horrific. And I would take a breath, and I could sense the relief that death would give me if this is my last breath. Like, if I could just take this last breath, this is my last breath, what a relief it would be. And I would start to crave my last breath. And it was like I could feel it. It was like tangible. To me, I kind of feel myself dying, and the first thing that would come to my mind is opiates. Like, I would have this thought going to my mind, like, I need to get a handful of opiates because I know those will make you suffocate. And of course, I'm in bed, so I never had any implementation thing for this. This is just what I thought, but it was things like this that I was scared to bring up with my hospital, and it's after. It's right around the time between November, when this next appointment is, and January of 2020, that I get John in the mix. I'm a little more comfortable, and not under such a, not feeling under such a continuous threat of being forcibly hospitalized, because they've got somebody outside of Charlotte to help with the civil commitment process. That I don't trust Atrium Health, and I don't trust anyone in Charlotte, because somebody at Atrium Health, at Novant Health, at these other hospitals, somebody at Atrium Health has got them in their extended network. I've got this bank that's involved in these crimes that has such enormous resources, it can corrupt anyone. Okay, that what I came to realize very early on in this fight is that if you offer somebody $10,000 to do something illegal, they might take it, they might turn you down. If they have a moral compass, they'll turn you down. If they have less of a moral compass, they might take it. Or maybe if they're desperate and they got a moral compass, they'll take it. Same thing if you offer $5,000, if you offer $20,000. But at some point, when you get to $100,000, $150,000, $300,000, $1 million, okay, you reach the point that nobody will turn down the money, particularly when there's a practically zero chance of getting caught. Okay, if you have somebody that's offered $1 million or $10 million, okay, to do some crime, they will rationalize it to themselves to the end of time about why they're not doing something so bad, there's nothing wrong with this, or it might be that they don't even give a rat's ass if it's wrong or not, that they just lose all rationality when presented with a sum of money like that. And to Wells Fargo, figures like $200,000, $1 million, $10 million, $20 million, these are pennies to this bank. Okay, literal pennies. And so I know what's going to happen. That anybody in Charlotte that's in this whole network in Charlotte, that I'm sent to their facility to be inpatient hospitalized. What's going to happen is somebody in Atrium Health's network is going to get in touch with them, and they're going to get a phone call that says, "Hey, would you like $1 million?" Okay, and I'm going to be a prisoner at will of them again. Of them too. I'll be another prisoner at will of another hospital. And so that's why I'm so very anxious, and that's why I get a lot of relief when John enters the mix between November. It's around the month November, December, January of 2020 that he gets in the mix and starts to help me. Okay, one thing I forgot to do, got to go over this email that I sent on August 9th, 2019. This is another relevant part, and this is redacted. But here it's on August 9th. I've contacted Corporate Privacy on August 6th. I'm on the case as to who the hell is getting my healthcare information and giving it to Jenny. And I am asked if she spoke to Mobile Crisis. And this is, I'm leaving a message, it looks like, on 8/9/19, wanting to know if provider, and I don't want the provider to talk to anybody else until I speak to her. Okay. And here are these people that I'm deauthorized. And there's John. Down here. Okay, and here I tell her I'm collecting information from the medical registers department. And I wanted to shoot you a quick question. As I understand it, there's something called a non-authorized disclosure where my healthcare providers can discuss my situation with outside providers. Have you ever discussed my situation with the people at Mobile Crisis? Please reply when convenient, and I would ask that my case never be discussed with them for any reason going forward. Have a great weekend. Okay, and then she responds with, I have not discussed your case with Mobile Crisis. And for some reason, when Atrium prints out these emails, it prints the same one over and over again. But those are the only relevant emails. In this section, and the takeaway here, is I've got another thing where I'm suspicious. I'm wanting to know if she's talking to Mobile Crisis. And you'll notice that they make no claim in my healthcare records that this doesn't make it. That it's never in my healthcare records, in my clinical visit notes. Kathy never brings this up in my appointments. And also, very crucially, they don't claim that this is a symptom of paranoia or any of this other garbage. Which, when we get into this healthcare fraud, they never make this claim. They never. I don't think they ever make this specific claim. Which I've never claimed that the people spoke with Mobile Crisis, but they don't make the fact that I've asked about this. They don't reference this at all. But this is just another example of, I'm mentioning crimes over and over. I'm calling Corporate Privacy. I'm very suspicious. I mentioned the crimes of corporate privacy. I mentioned what's the funny stuff that's going on to them. I talk about all kinds of crimes and civil law violations and suspects stuff to my healthcare providers. And there's no evidence that they think anything of it whatsoever. They essentially do not address it. Okay, outside from these comments they make about Shirley calling the number after I deauthorized it at the inpatient unit, that's pretty much it. They discuss my belief about what happened with Jenny, but the rest of this stuff, it's nowhere. Okay, it's nowhere until all of a sudden, in January of 2021, after I'm hospitalized at Novant Health in September and October 2020, and Novant Health claims this garbage, all of a sudden we have a frenzy of Atrium Health making claims about my belief in these crimes. But we'll cut this off. That was just a quick note that I wanted to make. And so here we continue with the November 5th, 2019 appointment. And my notes for this appointment are short. That I don't fully remember everything that I said in this appointment, but I do remember for sure that I told Kathy, I said, my mother's talking to Jenny, and I'm sure this hospital is the one who gave her the number. Now, in reaction to this, Kathy goes dead silent. Okay, it's like she is scared to engage in a conversation about this topic. She doesn't want to go anywhere near it. Now, at the time, I thought it was because she knew that my hospital had given her the number. I was the one, I suspected at this point that the people at the inpatient unit had given my mother Jenny's number, because that's when I gave my number was when I gave it to the inpatient units, and I figured that my mom has conned them out of this number. What I'm of the belief of now, it seems clear, that Kathy is the one who has given her this number. That's why that she went dead silence. was because she didn't want to engage in this topic because she was the one who gave her the number. And at this point, I've called corporate privacy. This got back to them, to Kathy. They're starting to figure out that everything that I do, they do. I'm real keen at catching them, mainly through reading their behavior is a big part of how I do this. How I figured stuff out. And so she doesn't want to start talking about this because she's going to sell the farm to the fact that she's done it. Possibly she's thinking that. I don't know. But for whatever reason, she doesn't want to talk about this at all. And, of course, the thing is if she didn't believe that my mother was talking to Jenny, because I didn't say, I think my mother's talking to Jenny, I think this hospital's the one who gave her. I say my mother's talking to Jenny, and I'm sure this hospital is the one who gave her the number. Okay? So if she didn't think that my mother was talking to Jenny, or if she thought that there was any doubt whatsoever, she would ask me, why do you think your mother's talking to Jenny? How do you know that your mother's talking to Jenny? What did she do? Did she tell you? And stuff like this. And so what you can read into the fact that she doesn't ask me any of this. She doesn't ask me how I know, when did my mother, none of these clarifying questions, that Kathy takes this as a fact. Okay, now given that she takes this as a fact, because again, if she didn't, she would be asking me. And of course, this also, this is another detail that does not make it to my notes at all. Okay. Given that she accepts this as a fact, the next thing you would expect her to ask, if she accepts it as a fact, is how do you know the hospital is the one who gave her the number? What makes you think the hospital is the one who gave her the number? Okay, there are two facts here that are subject to doubt. One is that my mother is actually talking to Jenny when I say that she is. That could be subject to doubt. The other thing is that my hospital is the one who gave her the number. Okay, so Kathy would ask, what makes you think? How do you know it wasn't somebody else you knew at Wells Fargo? How do you know that you didn't give her the number? Okay, all of this stuff like this. At this point, I've not given them a detailed thing about my mother, about her behavior pattern towards me. If they didn't accept this as a fact, if Kathy didn't accept this as a fact, she would have asked about it. Okay, this also would have made it to my notes. Okay, and in particular, if they thought this was some kind of paranoid delusion or some kind of garbage, which is later claimed not by Atrium but by another hospital, okay, then they would reflect. They would put that in my notes at this point. They would say, "Hey, he thinks his mother's talking to Jenny, and something's up here. He thinks our hospital gave him the number. We didn't give him the number. I know for a fact I didn't give him the number. That might be another behavior you would expect from them. Kathy would ask around. Let me find out who gave it to her. Let me ask these people if they gave her the number." Now, of course, as I figured out at this point, as you figured out, and then anybody, I guess, if you weren't naive like I was, the hospital is not going to get themselves in trouble. But if she didn't know this, she could ask around and try to find out. And of course, what's going to happen in that hypothetical, and she's going to find out that the hospital, if it wasn't her, if it was the people at the inpatient unit, they're going to tell her, and then they're going to go and cover their own ass, and Kathy's going to lie to me. But that's a takeaway. Another thing about this appointment was this negative attitude that Kathy had towards me. And so to go back, even before April 25th, 19, even before this 4/22/19 hospital stay, for several appointments leading up to that, Kathy had started to have a reaction of contempt towards me. Again, what I mean by contempt was that Kathy had started to perceive me, in Kathy's mind, I was like a pathetic person. Okay, this behavior that people have towards people when they have contempt towards them, and this had came out in ways that were subtle, in ways that were a little not so subtle. Our appointments then, that Kathy had this reaction of contempt towards me. Then, as I've described, once we get into 2019 and April 2019 and the months that follow, and she realizes that I'm a liability for her hospital, she starts to have this even more negative attitude towards me. On this 11/5/19, that is gone. Okay, the negativity is completely gone. And I walk in there and say, "Hey, how are you?" Okay, and she's extremely friendly and kind and nice to me in this appointment. And what she's doing is she knows, that she's been caught, and her wrongful behavior at her hospital is involved in all kinds of crime. They're trying to smooth the situation over, to placate me, be nice to me, for their benefit, not mine. Okay, because the Atrium Health is in big trouble at this point, at least in their mind. They know that they've done a lot of wrong, and they're under the illusion, what later we'll see is an illusion, that they could possibly face serious consequences for their conduct. So here we have our takeaways. And I don't have an individual takeaway for 11.5.19. The only takeaway is from 11.5.19 is that I mentioned this about Jenny, talking to my mother. Okay. But we have this. This becomes relevant, not in the next section, but in the section that follows. So right now, this means nothing, but keep this in mind for a future section, that in 2018, I had to adjust my medication because my medication olanzapine, generic Zyprexa that I've been taking, was causing me extreme cognitive impairments. Okay, this medicine, olanzapine, causes me cognitive impairments. Keep that in mind. And again, this will be much later that this comes in. Then I rehashed this, that I called them, and on these 416 and 417 calls, I talked to two people on at least one of these calls. I think I talked to two people on both of them. That I talked to the person that answered the phone, then I talked to the nurse. Every time I talked to them, I told them about Jenny being up to no good, that Jenny and the people at Wells Fargo, I can't remember what I said about Wells Fargo, but that Jenny might be trying to get my medical records, and I think I did say that she might be doing it for Wells Fargo. But I mentioned Jenny being up to no good at least 3 times on these dates. Okay. Now, Atrium security protocol isn't too good because 4 days later, on April 21st, I'm hospitalized with this. I've got a civil commitment petition coming to their hospital in handcuffs, and this petition is signed by none other than Jennifer Cox, the person that I'd warned them about 3 or 4 times on these dates. Okay, and this petition is extremely suspect. It describes my belief that a workplace privacy violation occurred, as thinks his friends are out to get him, and that he's in immediate danger from them. Makes claims that I have delusional behaviors. What the hell a delusional behavior is? Okay, and very important, these claims were validated as false by Atrium Health in a process that Kathy was part of. So Atrium concluded, they told me, the last person, I think it was a psychiatrist assistant that talked to me before I left, said, we found nothing. They said, it's a good thing you were brought here because you've been examined, and we found nothing, meaning they found no symptoms of any mental health condition. So here we have belief, good reason to believe that Jenny is up to no good. Okay, that I didn't receive this petition. I ordered it in January 2020. Is when I got the petition from Atrium, which included the custody order. But Atrium has seen these bullshit claims, and Kathy gives in my notes a narrative of what I explained about what happened in the mountains, and so this would seem to not add up to thinking my friends are out to get me and that I'm in immediate danger from them. Okay. Then here we have the suspect details that, again, I've mentioned to Kathy. Each of these details at least once, many of them multiple times. The police officer that processed the petition was Jenny's neighbor and personal friend. The crisis counselor who went to the magistrate's office with Jenny was Jenny's personal friend. We have this one crisis counselor's strange behavior, where all she talks about the whole time we're in there is, do you have a mental illness? Do you have a mental illness? What we need to know is, do you have mental illness? Okay, she asks this, and then of course, after she pins down that I have a mental illness, she starts to repeatedly focus on, that's your diagnosis. Okay, so I've told Kathy about this. Okay, this is obviously suspect behavior, so we got more suspect behavior on top of this. Okay, Jenny lied to me and told me that the magistrate's office was across the street from the hospital. Okay, so Jenny's not lying for no purpose. This is an obvious lie. Kathy knows this is a lie. Kathy told me when I told her this, no, that the magistrate's office is not across the street from the hospital. It's at the courthouse. So Jenny's lying. And why is Jenny lying? She's doing this to cover up something. Okay, there's something funny going here. Okay, now tell me the officer wasn't in possession of the petition. Okay, and in reference to what happened with Wells Fargo, this privacy violation, I have this suspect text between Jenny and Tony, which any person can see that Jenny is lying about this text when she claims it's their entire text history. This is extremely implausible. Okay, and so I've mentioned the officer wasn't in the possession of the petition. Okay, that this would seem to be designed to try to hide that fact somehow. Okay, so I've got Jenny, this girl, that I called about on 416 and 417. They don't reference her name, but they do reference her name on 421-19, that she files this petition that is obvious bullshit. Atrium Health called bullshit on it. Okay, so we've got this bullshit petition, and then I introduce all of these details, okay, that make it look like there's something extremely bad, extremely suspect is going on. Okay, again, all of these details. But what does this add up to you? Okay, now here we have that none of this makes it to my notes. Okay, not one of these facts make it to my notes. Okay, and so why is this not making it to my notes? Because it's a liability for Atrium Health. That's one inference we can make there. That would be a good reason as to why. Again, this is systematically left out of my notes. This is over a period of 4 appointments now. 4 appointments I've had with them: April 25th, May 1st, June 13, June 24. Okay. And that over all those notes, none of this is ever mentioned. What's also very important is that I've introduced this to Atrium Health very early on. A lot of these things that I've mentioned, and again I mentioned them multiple times, but they go back to April 25th, 19 to May 1st, 19. Okay, and so for sure, and actually, as of this point, now that I think of it, we haven't even got to. Actually, no. So some of this does occur in the June appointments. Okay. So real early in the process, all these claims I've told Atrium. I've brought these up to Atrium, and so when they claim, if and when they claim, all of a sudden in 2020 and 2021 that my belief about all these crimes occurring is new information, and they call this as a delusion. One, they can't claim it's new information. They can't claim that if they act as if it is, they're obviously lying. And if they call me as having a paranoid delusion at that point, or a psychosis, a mania, why do they not do that at this point when I've told them repeatedly? Okay, I've given them 4 opportunities up to this point in the narrative. I've given them 4 opportunities to call me paranoid and delusional and all this garbage. It doesn't make it to my notes at all. They don't say anything about it. Okay, then we have the suspect thing with the finance department. That again, okay, goes back to Jenny. Okay, Jenny's involved. Jenny, my former coworker at Wells Fargo, seems to be a common element in every suspect thing that happens up to this point. Okay, and this is in the June 13th and June 24th. Okay, appointments. Okay, and at this point, I've already deauthorized Jenny. I don't know how many times. Okay. I deauthorized her twice in the inpatient unit. I go to the nurse. They're not deauthorized there. I deauthorize them both with the nurse on April 25th or May 1st of 19. I watch the nurse deauthorize them. On that occasion, 99.9%, I'm almost 100% sure, I told the nurse about what happened. Okay, so that would be a third, you can count that as a third deauthorization, or fourth deauthorization, because I deauthorized them once to the nurse. And then I've reiterated, and when I tell her that, hey, this girl at the inpatient unit, I wouldn't delete those. I thought they were gone. Okay, so express my wishes, again, a 4th time, or if you don't count that, at the very least, when I tell Kathy, okay, on April 25th or May 1st, I tell Kathy about this behavior, so I've expressed my wishes for Jenny's number to be deauthorized again. Okay, and here what we have in June is Jenny. They're calling Jenny on her work number a number that I do not even know. Okay, and they claim that I listed this number as an alternate contact when I did my intake paperwork. Okay, and I did my intake paperwork in 2011, 5 years before I met Jenny, and about 6 years before Jenny had this job. Okay, and at the time, even at the time they make this claim in June of 19, that I entered this on my intake paperwork when Charlotte makes this claim, I don't even know Jenny's work number. I didn't know Jenny's work number until I retrieved the petition in January of 2020. Okay, that's when I got the petition that had Jenny's work number on there. Okay, and so this is obviously more extremely suspect behavior. Now, this does make it to my notes, partially. What we have is that we have on my 613, when again, at this point, 613, Kathy doesn't think anything funny is going on. We have a note about her asking for my social security number, and then this note is referenced in 62419. And actually, sorry, I misspoke. Actually, I didn't say anything about the people not deauthorizing the numbers, but in 613, the thing about not deauthorizing and the inpatient unit refusing to deauthorize Jenny's number, okay, this makes it to the notes here. Okay, on 613, then on 624, I give them more details. I give Kathy more details that are more conclusively incriminating, more suspect. And this note from 613 is referenced again, but it's heavily watered down. It doesn't include the fact that this is Jenny's work number, which I do not even know. It doesn't include the fact that Charlotte is claiming that I entered this on my intake paperwork, okay, which was done in 2011, okay. It's heavily watered down. And then on this in the performance with June, I tell Kathy that the officer committed the crime because he didn't have the petition in his possession. I already told her this once, that he didn't have the petition in his possession. And on the June appointments, I introduced a duty detail that I've looked this up. It's a crime, and he's looking at 3 years in prison. And I can't remember what crime this was. I want to say it might have been a felonious restraint. And at this point, I don't think I'd referenced the term kidnapping yet, but I may have looked it up and saw it as a kidnapping too. I can't remember. But I haven't, at this point, I haven't mentioned it to the atrium that it's a kidnapping. Okay, that's a claim that I later make. But this is very important, is that my argument that the officer has committed a crime is a legal argument. And at this point in time, right here, all it's based on is the fact that he didn't have the petition in his possession when he was at my apartment, which the petition comes with a custody order, but I call it the petition. At this point, I call it the petition, that he doesn't have the petition in his possession, and that he didn't have the right to take all these actions against my will. And the reason I don't believe, and the reason I don't think he had the petition in his possession, or that I know that he didn't, was that his answers when he was transporting me to the hospital, when I'm asking him about the petition, his answers seem to very strongly indicate and make it clear that he is not in possession of the petition. Then Jenny lies to me about this. This is more evidence that he didn't have the petition in his possession. And sorry, I got this dog in the background. Okay. I've got a legal argument based on these facts. The fact that he didn't have the petition in his possession, which I answered by the fact that he's made it clear when he answered the questions when he's transporting me, because Jenny's lying. And so here, again, they can't come out of nowhere, or they shouldn't be allowed to come out of nowhere in 2020 and 2021, claiming this is a brand new claim. That they've never heard, acting as if they've never heard this before from me, that this officer's committed a crime. They also, if and when they start to claim that I believe this because it's a paranoid delusion or any of this garbage, why did they not do this at this point? Okay, and then see what they've got to contend with me with on this, about this claim. If they want to say that I have a paranoid delusion or a hallucination, or that I'm having mania and psychosis, the facts that they've got to contend with are the facts that is my reason. My reason for why he didn't have the petition in his possession. So that, again, that's the basis for my legal argument at this point. And later on, my legal argument, I do characterize this as a kidnapping to Atrium. You'll see that in the next section. And I added additional elements to the arguments. But that's what they've got to address at this point. And then, of course, in future times, this remains part of my argument going forward. They've got to make a claim that my belief that he didn't have the petition was delusional. Okay, they got to make a claim that the fact that it's listed, that my belief that this is listed in the North Carolina General Statutes as a crime is a delusion. So they got to say they don't say he has a delusion that he was kidnapped. Okay, they can't do that. They've got to say he has a delusion that the officer didn't have. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here, but they've got to contend with me on these facts. And of course, if they contend with me on these facts, I have a very, very, very solid reasoning. Okay. Now, we have the evidence of the foul play on the custody order. Okay. Now, I didn't get this petition until January 2020. Atrium's had it the whole time. And as I'm mentioning this about the petition not being in the officer's possession, I'm mentioning all of these suspect details. Atrium and Kathy have full ability to look at this petition. And what are they going to see when they look at this petition? Very obviously, they're going to see these forged timestamps. Okay. And so, again, not only do I allege crimes, but there's suspect details that I allege, and also suspect details that they know at this point that I do not know, that substantiate my claims. Okay, and so that's another thing, is when she claims this, that I don't appear to have specific evidence. Okay, and she does this in my 2019 notes several times, that I don't have specific evidence. I would characterize all of this as, and of course this doesn't even make it to the notes, of course, but I would reference this as specific evidence. I would reference it as specific evidence that when I call corporate privacy and they tell me that Charlie's only purpose for my Social Security is to file a Medicaid application to order my medical records. Okay, in light of what happened in that conversation, I would I would take that as specific evidence. Okay, all of this. Okay, and then we have during my inpatient stay, I was refused twice to delete or deauthorize numbers, and here I've misspoken. It was on my notes on 613 and 624. They reference this in a watered-down version that doesn't have the incriminating details of what I say. Okay, and here's another important. If you haven't saw my HIPAA violations videos, go to those. We see as of 5/31/19, my mother and my sister know my doctor Kathy's number, which they call her Kathleen, that I don't reference her as Kathleen. Okay, they know my doctor's name. I never in a million years would have gave it to them. And you watch that HIPAA violation section. My mother is involved in illegal contact with my hospital, and as of this time, this illegal contact is continuing. Okay, and I've given you some evidence. Before I go back to February of 2020 in those chats, and maybe in the future, so in the future sections, we will have definitive evidence that this illegal behavior between my mother and Atrium continues. And as I explained in my interlude videos about my mother is deceitful, okay, and she will be more than happy to aid Atrium Health in covering up her illegal contact with Atrium Health and Atrium Health's illegal sharing of information with her, okay, because I'm a big damn liability for my mother. And this especially becomes the case as 2020 starts, because I start to reach out and try to contact the media. And I'm at one point under the impression that I'm talking to the media about what happens. And my mother is, that'll be her worst nightmare for me to get national and widespread attention, widespread attention that I would talk about on this child abuse that I've suffered. Okay, that my mother's desire, again, as I explained in those videos, to control my life is based on this unhealthy emotional relationship she has with me, and also based on her attempts and her need to discount the sexual abuse that I suffered as a child. Okay, and then here, I've already introduced this idea that Jenny is talking to my mother. And I'm sure that Atrium Health is the one who gave her the number. This never makes it to the notes. This is another thing that they cannot claim after the fact. Okay, in other words, if they do, so I'm not going to say anymore if they cannot, because in reality they can. But if they do, this is suspect and it's bullshit. If later down the road in 2020 and 2021, they or someone else start to make claims that this, that I've never said this before, or that it's a paranoid delusion or any of this garbage, because they don't say it now. Okay, and then here we're getting ahead just a little bit. What happens is in November and December of 19, John starts to get in the mix, and I feel more comfortable. I don't feel like I'm such a prisoner at will anymore. And Kathy's attempt to be nice at me in this 11/5/19 appointment doesn't work, and I'm after these people. I'm calling their corporate privacy office, and of course they know at this point that I've got these recorded calls. I'm calling their corporate privacy office and kind of grilling them and asking them questions about who's talked to who, what's happened, stuff like this. Very shortly, I'm going to start contacting the corporate privacy office, and this is, I believe, in December of 19 when this starts, is that my number becomes the number that everybody at the corporate privacy office knows not to answer. Okay, that I become the focus of the people at their behavioral health unit. They all know about me. I'm the focus of them, and I guarantee you that the executives at this hospital, they know exactly who I am. They know me by name. I am the focal point of this hospital because of the massive, monster-sized slew of crimes they've committed against me at this point, and which they know that I have evidence for. Okay, and it's during and following these months, Atrium goes into what I call loss aversion cover my ass mode. Okay, they start to try to weasel out of these crimes. And so what you've got to be aware of when you see their communications, their healthcare notes, their communications, when they record the communications that my mother makes with them, when they record the communications through phone and email and stuff like this that I make to them, you've got to keep in mind the dishonest nature of what's going on, and then realize that you cannot take any, what they say is not to be taken. You cannot take it at face value. Okay, that you got to understand that it's all dishonest, and that they are weaseling out. You understand that they're weaseling out of the crimes, and that's why they say things the way that they are. That again, in this context of the fact that I'm a massive liability for this hospital, they're sweating bullets, and then when I say loss aversion, that they continue to commit crimes. So the illegal contact with my mother continues, and they also throw their cards in fully with Wells Fargo, and they begin to commit crimes against me for the benefit of Wells Fargo. What's happened there is Atrium Health. Atrium Health may or may not be above the law. Okay. But at this point in time, they don't know it. But Wells Fargo appears to have known, and I didn't know this, but it appears to know that Wells Fargo is above the law. And so most likely, what's happened is Wells Fargo has told them that we can help you get out of trouble. We can hire lawyers. The Justice Department's not going to do anything to us. If they prosecute you, that means they got to incriminate Wells Fargo and prosecute us. And so we're above the law. We can help you get out of this. And so we need you to work for us and commit crimes for us. Which one of the main things that they do is this healthcare fraud, where they deliberately understate my suffering in my healthcare notes. They do some other things, but I use the understatement of my suffering. That is to protect Wells Fargo if there's a civil case, because my pain and suffering will be documented in my medical records. Okay, and they do other stuff that I'll get into in the next section. Okay, and so I'll close this video off, and in the next video I'm going to go over some of the communications that happened in November and December of 2019, the emails and the phone calls and stuff. And then we'll transition on into the next section for the healthcare fraud. Okay, so we'll go over the notes for my 11/5 appointment real quick. There's not a whole lot to see here. Energy fair and concentration varies. It's voice being traumatized by the situation, Wells Fargo. Okay. Yeah, I never say anything about my security of my identity. I never say that. So here that they're already starting to subtly, it looks like they're starting to subtly shift what I claim, and this adding this element of my identity. Okay, that makes this here. It's like they're already beginning to lay the groundwork to try to make my claim that this stuff happened to be some kind of mental health symptom. Now I want to go to my mental status examination. Okay, and here we have evidence here of my handicap, that when I was so disabled, as I become so disabled, I have trouble. It's like everything that I do is a whole lot harder for me, and it's hard for me to take a shower because of the mental effort that it takes. Also hard for me to shave, hard for me to do just about anything. And I used to shower once or twice a day, and I would probably be showering once every 5 days, once every 7 days, something like that, because I was unable. Okay, but I want to go down here because we're keeping track of my perceptions. Okay, so notice here, so we've had a consistent no abnormalities in my perception. We've had my thought content has been consistent in the fact that they never reference any mania or delusions or paranoia, stuff like that in my thought content. I'll fact check that, but we've already been over this. I'll fact check that after this video, and I'll mention in the next video if I'm off here. But on 425.19, 51.19, 613.19, 624.19, 815.19, if I recall, we've had this pattern of no abnormalities, no violent thoughts. I'm keeping track of that because you'll see in the next set of videos that it changes. Okay. Another thing is that I've been diagnosed by autism by Karen Crane, and I've presented them her diagnostic evaluation where she issues the diagnosis, and Atrium does not list my autism as a diagnosis as of that point. As of this point, and I think that might continue. But that's that. And then I want to show you the emails that I've sent and the calls, the recordings of the calls and the emails. Okay, and here my mother is calling. Patient has been very suspicious lately. Thinks his mom is talking to one of his friends, Jenny. Okay, and mom wants to see if somebody can check on them, if it'd be okay to do a safety check, blah, 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 blah. She saw my Facebook post. Yeah, this post online. Okay, now this right here, what they're doing is again, my mom is deceitful. These people, again, as I've told you in the last video, they are engaged in very, they're breaking the law. They're being dishonest, and this is a load of bullshit. And that's the reason what they've done here. They've put Jenny, they've quoted. Okay, they're trying to hide the fact. At this point, do you think this hospital knows who the hell Jenny is? Okay, I mean, get real. Okay, and the fact of the matter is that my mother is talking to Jenny for sure, without a doubt. I've already explained that in my HIPAA violations videos. She knows Jenny's number. The other facts that I've given to you, and then of course you'll notice this is 11/25/19. When we get into the next appointment that I have with Atrium, we don't get any questions. I don't have any questions about this suspicion, and of course also again on 11/5/19 I've already made this claim. Okay, and so when my mother calls, and again, my mother, they're involved in illegal contact. At this point, they're involved in illegal contact. It's illegal for Atrium. I don't think it's illegal for my mother when my mother participates in a HIPAA violation. But my mother has a mutual interest in running my life with these people because I'm a liability for my family and because I'm a liability for Atrium. Okay, they have this mutual interest. My mother did this my whole life. She is incredibly deceitful. You've never seen somebody as deceitful as her in your life, actually. Okay, and this is bullshit right here, and you got to keep that in mind. Okay, and then here we've got okay, I'm looking here for what Kathy is on this note. Okay, So here again, Kathy's on here. Okay, well, why is there not any? And of course, and here they're trying to commit me again, have me hospitalized, another crime there. And then again, this is exactly what I feared. That's why I'm afraid to talk to these people until John was on the scene, because I'm a prisoner at will of these thugs, and these masters will sign off on anything that you put in front of them, especially what a doctor sponsors. Okay. But here, Kathy is on this. Kathy is on this. Yeah. So here yeah. So she's privy to this conversation. Okay, that is happening. Why doesn't she bring it up here? He told me this in his last appointment. Okay. She acts like she doesn't reference this at all. And I've told her, and again, I told Kathy that my hospital is the one who gave her the number. Why is that on here? Why did you say he's suspicious about us too? He thinks we gave him the number. Okay, this is bullshit. And if you have any doubt, as we get into this, the next two sets of videos, the next 2 or 3 sections, once I get into the section where the cover-up starts, if you have any doubt about the criminality and deceitfulness of my mother, you just wait. But again, these people are sweating bullets. This is bullshit. Don't take this at face value, because if you do take this at face value, it would sort of suggest that, hey, my mom's not talking to Jenny. My hospital, they're benign and innocent. They don't even, this girl Jenny is not a recurring focus of them because of all the trouble she's gotten their hospital into as a result of her being a former employee of Wells Fargo and running their scams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is that. And I'm going to cut this video off. We'll get into the next section. We'll get into the healthcare fraud that occurs with Atrium Health in 2020, and then in the subsequent section, we'll get into the cover-up when the healthcare fraud gets amped up majorly, and we'll just continue on. All right, so I forgot to go over this 1217 email. And this project is a nightmare for me. I'm getting sick of working on it. So here I emailed Kathy on December 17th, and I talk about okay, I'll explain in a second. I'll tell you what happens here, but I'm asking her about who's my health information shared to. Find this email here. Like I said, I'm aware under normal circumstances I must permit my healthcare team to talk to outside personal acquaintances, but that there are exceptions where this may not be applied. Can you tell me if you have contacted Jennifer Cox, who filed the involuntary commitment on 4 April 2019 for any reason, whether permitted or not? Were these communications, if they exist, properly documented so as to be on Atrium Health's records? Thanks for your time. And she replies, and they do this, that your emails are on there over and over. We find her reply. Okay, I have not communicated with her right here. It's her reply. And again, the way they print these emails, it has the same thing over and over again. I'm going to go back up here and tell you what I'm talking about. Is in December, when I'm calling corporate privacy, and I asked the lady at corporate privacy if Kathy or my hospital has ever talked to Jenny. I asked them outside of when they called her in the inpatient unit. This lady corporate privacy at first tries to tell me that they can't tell me if she's talked to Jenny or not. She says something. She says the privacy is between the patient and the provider. Okay, they're trying to somehow insinuate that Kathy somehow has a right to privacy as to who she talks to, or that my right to privacy is between me and Kathy. And I don't know what she was saying. The weird thing that she was saying, and this is what I'm talking about, that my medical records may have limited information due to patient-provider privacy. That's what I'm talking about there. Okay, that somehow she's trying to tell me that, that's because the patient, the privacy is between the patient and the provider, that she can't. This is strange to me. And of course, what happened? You got to go back to what I told you in the other video. Is these people are sweating bullets, and that they don't know what to do. A subsequent call, I'll probably have them the same day, either the same day or the next day. I call Atrium Health Corporate Privacy, and I asked them about this. and trying to remember, there were a few calls, but in one call, she tells me that the only person listed on my account for ongoing contact is me. Okay, in the sense that I got there, when she says ongoing contact, she's qualifying what she's saying. Okay, so why am I not the only one on there listed for contact, period? Okay, the notion of I'm the only one on there for ongoing contact, instead of saying you're the only person on your account authorized for contact, said you're the only person on your account authorized for ongoing contact. This begs the question, is who else is authorized for non-ongoing contact? Okay, and here, part of what they're doing is they're trying to weasel out of their crimes, and they're also trying to deliberately to avoid lying and being caught in a lie, is what they're doing. That's why she dodges the question when I first asked her, has Kathy talked to Jenny? Has anybody in the hospital outside of, talked to Jenny outside of when they called her to the inpatient units? And she says that she can't because the privacy is between the patient and the provider. Okay, they're weaseling out on answering the question there. Okay, and then when she hedges her bets, when I ask her about this the second time, she says you're the only one authorized for ongoing contact. After the fact, she, if she's ever caught in this lie, this apparent lie, she can reference the ongoing portion of that. Okay, that's how he's the one that's going to be ongoing, contacted on an ongoing basis, and so I didn't lie. Probably, I imagine what's going on in Atrium now is they've committed this they've committed a slew of crimes. This is a very serious crime, what they did with Jenny, what they did with my mother. And this contact with Jenny, Jenny's the one that filed the involuntary hospitalization petition. And probably what they're trying to do, part of what they're trying to do, is to try to scurry and rationalize and research and find any plausible reason as to why they would have a right to contact Jenny. Okay, the one way to weasel out of this, where they contacted Jenny, is to lie about it and not get found out. Another way is to find some remote excuse that Jenny thought I was a danger to myself. I was worried about Jenny was worried about me when she filed this petition. They have a legal right to talk to the petitioner under limited circumstances. That they're trying their best to get some kind of answer like that. And so when I call them, they want to dodge the question because it's kind of like almost like a prisoner's dilemma game, sort of. But you can map out their outcomes in like a chart or something, or a diagram. That if they tell me that they contacted Jenny, well, then they've incurred liability because they've admitted to contacting Jenny. Now, there's a potential. There's a potential if they can weasel some kind of excuse that they're allowed to talk to Jenny. Then they weasel out, but there's a potential they're in trouble because they've admitted to me to talking to Jenny. However, if they lie, of course, they know, by the way, that they know at this point that I've recorded this conversation with Shirley, that I record my phone calls. They probably suspect that they're being recorded. Okay, but if I call them, instead of dodging the question, and instead of telling me that they contacted Jenny, if they lie and they get caught in a lie, well, then this removes their ability to come up with some half-assed, rationalized, researched, based in the law, the healthcare law answer as to why they could do it. So their best play for sure in answering this question is to dodge it. Now, I asked her in one of these calls to corporate privacy that was subsequent to the call I'm referencing. I asked her what she meant by ongoing contact. She says, you're the only one on there at all. You're the only one on there to be contacted at all. Okay, so she removes her hedging of what she tells me with ongoing contact. But here, we have another instance, and you'll see this doesn't make it to my healthcare notes at all, that my mother's called and said that my mother's talking to Jenny. I'm worried about my hospital. I'm worried about Kathy talking to Jenny. I'm asking them. I told her that I called corporate privacy, and that my medical, all of this, this never ever makes it to the notes. And they continue to play dumb, playing off that my mother is talking about Jenny, Ginny. Okay, and So they're involved in crime, as you'll see in the next section.